I'd like to welcome Don Manuello, who is a cattle rancher and chair of the National Stock Show Horse Advisory Committee. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, as I mentioned, you're a cattle rancher in Sterling.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how that got you to the stock show.
Well, I grew up in a rural area, a small farm and ranch in northeastern Colorado near Sterling along the South Platte River. And because of that and my love for animals and my love for people, this is what got me to stock show. Now, growing up, we didn't have very much. This was during the early 40s that I was growing up, and we had chores to do every morning and night, and we just had to spend our time and make sure that we were getting the things done that needed to be done. Now, along with that, I grew up in this area where the farm and ranch was previously owned by Jared Brush. Now, a little bit of Colorado history. Jared Brush grew up in Ohio, moved to Iowa, and then to Greene, Colorado. And he established some ranches along the Big Thompson River, but he had holdings all the way to the northeastern corner of the state. My parents acquired this farm and ranch in 1937, and at one time it was owned by Jared Brush. Now, Jared Brush was a rancher and a prospector. He became the sheriff of Weld County and then went on to become a county commissioner. After that, he was a general assemblyman, which we now call legislators.
Right.
After that, he became lieutenant governor. And the town of Brush is named after him, although he never did locate there. But he had holdings in that area. Now, the thing that's interesting for me is that one day, several years ago, I was trenching in one of our corrals out there at the ranch, and I unearthed a branding iron. That branding iron was JB, and it was Jared Brush's brand.
Wow.
And I still have that. It is still intact. It's just some memorabilia about the area that I grew up in.
But you were sort of, as we say, born into this. This is the part of your fabric, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Although I wasn't exposed to National Western early on, but I read about it, and actually when I was a very young person, we didn't have electricity or running water, so we didn't even have a radio.
Wow.
So our method of communication was by newspaper.
Right.
And I remember reading about the National Western through the Record Stockman, which was a weekly newspaper that came to our house. And that's where I first became involved and enthralled with National Western. Now, when I got into high school, I became a member of an FFA chapter, and we had a field day, and that took us to National Western. And because of that, then I was exposed for the first time. But prior to that, every farm and ranch had a small feedlot. And with this feedlot, we would have to ship cattle by rail to the Denver Union stockyards. We would drive the cattle from our farm and ranch, which was about 10 miles away, to a railhead.
Right.
And we had to cross the South Platte River, which sometimes was adventurous.
Sure, I'll bet.
And so then we would load these cattle on the rail cars, and we would then, the next day, we would come to Denver. Now, I can remember riding with a couple of cousins of mine and my father in a 1938 Ford coming down the two-lane highway.
Right.
And of course, the speed limit at that time was 55 miles an hour.
Right.
Two-lane highway. And being a youth and full of energy, it seemed like it took us forever to get to Denver.
Sure.
But for me, that day was exciting, only second to Christmas.
Wow. Boy, and I can understand that.
And after we got here, then of course we would check in with the commission company that was assigned to the cattle, and we would go down to the stockyards. I'm guessing that I was probably about 8 to 10 years old at the time.
Wow. Don, let me ask you, when you first saw the stock show, after you read about it in your paper and everything, did it sort of fulfill all your hopes and dreams, or was it just more than you ever imagined?
Well, yes, because that was the first time I ever came to the city when I saw the stock show.
Sure.
So it was a bit overwhelming for me.
Wow, sure.
And so it was just exciting to see all of the exhibits that were available at that time.
Right. Well, around these parts here, you're now with the National Western, and as far as they're concerned, you are a super volunteer. Not only are you the chair of the Horse Advisory Committee, but you're also a member of the Horse Judges Committee, the Horse Executive Committee. Plus, during stock show, you can be seen out there every day working in some capacity, either the paddock manager, ring steward, scribe, field judge for the Grand Prix, and on and on. So let me ask you, why are you so involved?
Because of the animals and the people. I get a thrill when I see the animals dressed up in their Sunday best, prancing around and strutting around, and it's just a thrill for me to see that. As far as the people, it's all of the people that I have met and those new acquaintances that come about. And just working with those people and enjoying some time together, the camaraderie of having people.
Right. Part of the theme of this video we're doing is stock show icons. And you are considered an icon around here. Maybe you don't believe that, but you are. Along with all these other icons that you know and have worked with shoulder to shoulder, what do you think of when you hear that term icon?
Well, for National Western, when I think of the icons, I think of, first of all, the founders of National Western.
Sure.
Those people who had the vision to bring the country to the city. And from then on, I think of people like Willard Sims, Chuck Sylvester, Nick Petrie, the Anschutz family. I think of Paul Andrews, Pat Grant, all of those people who have kept this going, this image of the Western lifestyle, and have built upon it over the years.
Right, kept it going and built upon it. I think that's a great way to put it. You certainly have an impressive experience in the horse world, serving as many leadership positions throughout the years, president and director of the High Plains Paint Horse Club, director of the Rocky Mountain Paint Horse Club. So what is all the involvement and all the people you've been associated with, what's that taught you?
Well, it's taught me two words: preparation and communication.
Wow.
I have never entered a horse show, but what I didn't want to be fully prepared to do whatever needed to be done. And in the evenings before the next day's schedule, I would look at that schedule to make sure that I had everything done that I could possibly do at that time. As far as communication, it's working with the various people, from the office staff to the judges, to the ring stewards, to the announcer, to the exhibitors, and making sure that everybody is informed as to what needs to be done and how we're going to get it done.
Right. Fully prepared. What a great attitude to have, and it must be much appreciated around here too.
Well, hopefully it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's certainly enlightening for me to be able to work with all of the people that I've been associated with here at National Western.
Sure. Well, Don, as you know, the National Western is in the midst of a major transformation that's going to create the new National Western Center. What do you think of these great facilities, and what is it going to mean to all the equestrian programs?
Well, the equestrian programs, it's going to, first of all, it's going to allow opportunities to work on scheduling and rescheduling and to expand to other events during the stock show itself. And then beyond stock show, during the time that the other 11 months when stock show is not going on, it's going to allow for opportunities of other organizations and associations that have equestrian programs to come to a venue that is going to be state of the art. And so I'm looking forward to that sort of thing happening, not only during stock show, but during the time when stock show is not going on.
Right, almost just as important as the stock show is when the stock show's not going on with what's coming.
Yes, it will be, because Denver is a unique place because it's situated near the mountains. Right. And I know that in past years we have had exhibitors come here to National Western, and if they happen to have a day when they don't have any classes going on at the horse show, they take advantage of the mountains. And so during stock show, you see them, I hear about them going up and skiing and doing some sightseeing. And during the summer months, when we have some other equestrian events here, I hear about them going up again to the mountains just to enjoy the scenery, to participate in maybe some trails, walking some trails, or just having a good time in an area that they're not accustomed to at home.
Right, certainly understandable. Don, thinking back, what do you think has been the best thing about being associated with the National Western all these years?
Well, again, as I said earlier, it's been the livestock and the people. The people that I work with here in this association have just given me an opportunity that I've dreamed about as a youngster. And I can remember coming to the stock show years ago as a spectator and saying, I wish I could be able to do something like that one of these days. And I have been blessed to have had the opportunity to get to be able to work at the stock show at the height of all the things that were going on. And so that's been a thrill for me. Right.
Let me tell you, the stock show's been blessed to have you too. Let me ask you now, looking ahead to 2022, when we think the stock show will be back in place as we remember it, can you just hardly wait for that?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm excited about the capital campaign and what it's going to bring. But 2022, in fact, my wife and I were talking the other day, and she says, what are we going to do during January that we don't have stock show? And so we're going to have to find something to entertain us during that time. But I wish it were happening tomorrow. I wish 2022 were here.
Right. You've still got that 8 to 10-year-old excitement about you, don't you?
Well, I'd like to think that I am, and sometimes that youth comes out in me, and I'm just happy that I'm still able to be here and to do the things that I'm able to do.
Yeah, well, we're happy about that too. Don Manuello, cattle rancher and chair of the National Western Stock Show Horse Advisory Committee. Thanks so much for your time today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.